Riders on the storm, riders on the storm, into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown, like a dog without a bone, and we're out alone. Riders on the storm, there's a killer on the road. His brain is squirming like a toad. Take a long holiday. Let your children play. If you give this man a ride, sweet family will die. Killer on the road. Yeah.
Hey out there, this is the 8th day of July 2016, and it's about a minute past 10 in the morning here in Northern California. And I showed a little bit of the sky around here today, and all this stuff is unnatural. They had gone period about 2-3 weeks maybe without a whole lot of spraying, a little bit here and there, but now they just really laid it on thick, and I can see how it affects not only my mood, but the mood of other people. And the way I can tell is when I'm driving, people seem a lot more uptight when they're spraying. And, you know, even if this stuff was completely innocuous, even if it was just water vapor, it's still wrong because they're meddling with Mother Nature. In other words, in all their wisdom, the scientific community, or at least certain people within the scientific community, say, well, you know what? Mother Nature's stupid. God, we don't believe in God. We don't believe in Mother Nature. We don't believe that there's a natural order of doing things here on Earth, and that these things are beyond our control and we shouldn't mess with these things. They're arrogant. They're usurping what rightfully belongs to a higher power, a cosmic power. And, I object, but it's emblematic. It's indicative of the way these people operate right down the line. I mean, we see the blatant arrogance. I'm going to talk about current events, and I want to talk about just the levels of blatant ignorance, often willful ignorance out there by the public, and how this is really a great evil, and that it's a way for people to try to shrug their share of responsibility and say, look, I got enough problems, like we all do. I mean, everybody knows that being human is very hard. The body, it tends to drag us down if we don't take care of it. And the older you get, the more you find this out. I mean, if you think it's hard to handle the heat when you're young, try getting older. You have to learn how to take care of your body more and more if you're going to be able to sustain the heat and live without, passing out and dying maybe. Dehydration, all kinds of problems can set in. But, we all have to be cognizant that it's hard being human, and we have to give each other slack, but nevertheless, we need to sometimes discipline one another. And this is the difficult part, because We don't, people don't want to be disciplinarians. It's just like a parent and their children. People didn't become parents so that they could be disciplinarians. Nevertheless, they're in a position of needing to be disciplinarians. So we all have an obligation, a responsibility, a duty. It's not so much a right even, but it's a responsibility to help other people. And sometimes the way we do that is not so pleasant to the people we're doing it to, but that falls under the category of tough luck. It's like Jesus turning over the money changer's table. Well, I'm not suggesting anybody goes into a bank today and starts kicking things over in the bank, you money changers. Because often, the banks today are very shielded from the responsibility that really belongs to the people at the top. So in Jesus' day, they didn't have a treasury, they didn't have a Federal Reserve or a central bank or an international monetary fund. But if you're going to go and turn tables over, I'm not suggesting violence or hurting anybody. I'm just saying that if you're going to make a display, a spectacle by disciplining these people, then go to the right, the causers of the problem. It's not your local credit union or your local bank. Okay, that would fall in the category of the central bank. These people at the very top, the ones that are controlling the issuance of currency. Maybe even in the halls of Congress or Senate or something like that. And, just make a display, say, because you people are legitimizing the activity that goes on there, and that affects everybody, okay? So not only is our life hard just by nature, being born into this world, we didn't ask to come here, but we're here. We're stuck here. We're all here, and we need to learn to get comfortable with it, because this is forever. This is why, this idea that, people are going to take the easy way out and kill themselves, or, they just got to get through this life. Forget it. It doesn't work like that. This is about eternity. Life is a good thing. And God doesn't take away good things once he gives them. So even the wicked people get to live forever, but they need to be disciplined by going to a harsh place, this place called hell. They need to be separated because they're not worthy. In order for God to be fair to the good and righteous, upright, decent people out there that want justice on earth, that hunger and thirst for righteousness to be the rule of the day upon the earth. Okay, it's not fair to them to always let these other guys, this other element, push them around. These people that are deceivers, the deceived, the confused, and the willful ignorant out there is what's going on. Now, last week, I started, I didn't talk about this deal with Loretta Lynch, the DA, the top cop, the Attorney General, and her little rendezvous with Slick Willie recently. And, I knew this was a big deal at the time, but I forgot to touch on this last week. But, this has mushroomed into a much bigger deal. Now we got James Comey, the FBI director, coming out and saying, well, yeah, obviously, there was a lot of reckless negligence on Hillary Clinton's part. But certainly it's not just her. But, he was just talking about her. In the vein of Hillary Clinton, he went on to say, what she had done that was improper. But, this idea of Loretta Lynch in any way thinking this was okay to meet with Slick Willie, okay, for whatever reason, that he could threaten her with Arkansas, or we don't know what happened. The FBI was instructed to tell the press that they could not film anymore. So this was a private meeting they had. And purportedly it was about golfing and grandchildren and, whatever. Okay, but, we, the public, are allowed to use our imagination since we don't know. All we can do is try to believe a liar like Slick Willie. We know he's a liar. We don't know about Loretta Lynch. So I'm not going to go and say she's a liar. But, she may feel like it's not her job to divulge everything they talked about. Maybe she's been threatened. Who knows what's going on? Maybe James Comey has been threatened with Arkansas. We don't know who gets threatened with their very life, or maybe somebody they care about more than themselves, okay, like their children. And, this is a big deal. So, last week I was talking about my kids and, how I feel about my children. and how disturbing the nightmare I had was. And the idea of a child taking their life is just it's appalling. And I'm here at a spot which is infamous for people taking their lives. That's why they put up this barrier, they put up this metal fence here and these big stones to prevent anybody from just driving off the highway and going over this cliff right where I'm standing and plummeting to their certain death. So, God knows why I had that dream, what the purpose was. But, there's some people that will say, you got to look at your dreams. You got to say, what's going on here? But you have a dream that disturbing. And I think about where this probably all stems from is when I took my kids on this mist trail in Yosemite Park. And in retrospect, I never would have taken my kids on that trail if I knew that forevermore thereafter I would have nightmares. There's been so many times I've been falling asleep and just woken myself up and, oh my God, what was I thinking taking my little girls? I mean, they were probably about 9 and 10, 11, in that range when I took them out there. And I think if anything had happened to my kids, if they had fallen off that ledge, that cliff, which was well over 2,000 feet to the floor of the Merced River below, and it was certain death. I mean, people die every year in Yosemite. So, this would have been a real possibility that they got stupid and careless, and I couldn't grab them soon enough, and and I couldn't imagine living with that for the rest of my life, being responsible. But, this is something that every parent has to contend with. Life is hard. I am inextricably vulnerable, inescapably vulnerable. Like so many people, all the parents out there that truly love their children, and typically you love your children more than you love your very life. And nevertheless, you have an obligation to discipline your children and get through to them and take whatever measures are necessary. And a lot of people will say, yeah, you got to even spank them sometimes, take the belt to them, or take a rod to them. Like King Solomon said, spare the rod and spoil the child. But, the rod of God is love. And when you sit somebody down, you explain to them, if you've got to confine them, you're grounded, this sort of thing. And you make sure under no uncertain, no uncertainty that they understand what you're trying to convey. Because otherwise, your conscience is dirty. It's cluttered up, okay? And you can't go forth and feel like I did everything in my power to make sure my kids understood the dangers, understood why this thing is wrong. Not just the physical danger, but the moral hazards in life, okay? Because there are a lot of moral hazards. And we're not taught this in school. We're not taught that there is definite right and wrong in the world. Okay, this is a big problem, a big, big, big problem. I was watching last night an episode of this Law and Order, Criminal Intent with this, what's his name, D'Onofrio or something in there, and he goes to this psychiatrist, and he gets the advice, and it's back and forth and give and take and all this, but all the time these psychiatrists and psychologists, they're trained to teach in a way that they were indoctrinated to teach, inculcated. This is, the credentialing aspect of it. And so these people are licensed, and so, they have all this prestige, and, I'm somebody you can trust and have faith in. But really, depending on where they got their knowledge, that may not be true, because at the end of the day, I mean, are they teaching, the wisdom of the Bible? Things like, understand we all have a war raging within our members, okay? A battle waging within our members. Every one of us, every day, has to contend with this fight between the wants, the desires of the flesh, right? And the wants and desires of our spirit. Our spirit wants to be free from the flesh, and the flesh wants to be free from the spirit. So we've got this battle that we've all got to contend with every day. And I wonder how the psychologists are conveying that to their patients. Are they really able to tell people, hey, you know what? You're going to have problems the rest of your life. This is going to be a struggle. This is going to be a battle. This is going to be a type of war between the wants of your carnal nature and the wants of your spiritual nature. And at the end of the day, only one of these things can win. Even if you get to where you're on your deathbed and on your last breath you say, God, I wish I had overcome that sin or this sin. You can be washed clean of it, okay? God understands that you never wanted your sin all along. This is when Jesus said, he said, you know, make sure that your sin finds you out. This is what we should do. We should seek to find, make sure that our sin, that's, the carnal nature, the leanings of the flesh, understands that what we are is spirit.